Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the stream. I am the company's expert, and I got good news for you. If you are in a job search right now, and you're looking for a job, you're going to be rejected. That happens to everybody. But the good news is that it is no reflection on you. Even the best people get rejected a lot, let me tell you. And it's going to work out. Don't take it to heart. So, welcome today. This is a live stream where we're going to be talking about interview preparation. So hopefully you're ready to talk about that. I see there are 20 people here today. Welcome, welcome. And there's people already asking questions in the chat. That's great. So if you're here, if you see the chat, which is usually to the right, the right of the video, say who you are, say where you're listening from. It's always a pleasure to hear where everybody is. And if you have any ideas for what I should call this show, this weekly live stream that I do, where I talk about job interview questions, let me know. Let me know. I'm looking for suggestions. I do it every Sunday and every Wednesday. And the Sunday one I might change to a general business discussion, but that's another thing that we'll get into later. And also, if you are seeing this and you're wondering where these live streams go, they go onto my second channel, The Company's Expert 2. So if this is a new thing you're hearing about just now, go to The Company's Expert 2 and subscribe, and you can watch these later for your viewing pleasure. I'll be taking questions today. We're going to start off talking about interview preparation, but if you have a question, you can leave it in the chat, and I will try my best to get to them. If, for whatever reason, the chat goes too fast, if you do a super chat, I will prioritize all super chats and answer any questions you have there thoroughly. And also a shout out to my Patreon members, my Patreons, and my YouTube channel members. My YouTube channel members get a free video every week. So if that's what you're into, and you want to know a little bit more advanced topics and things, join my channel as a member, and you get a free video every week. Awesome. Well, that's all the public service announcements out of the way. Let's dive in. Who do we have here? We've got Francisco. Francisco says, good morning. Good morning, Francisco. And Min, I recognize you from last time. Welcome. It's good to see you again. Eric. Hello from DRC. DRC. This is where I advertise my ignorance. I don't know what DRC is. I'm terrible with acronyms. If you spell that out, I will hopefully know what that is. And we've got the amazing alphanumeric member says, please tell me how to negotiate an offer when a company is a lowballer. Yeah, that's something that I do a lot of videos on. People still seem to want to know the answer, but okay, no problem. We'll get to it. And Yavaz is here, says, hey, Bill, good morning. Good morning, Yavaz, if I'm saying your name correctly. I'm sure I'm not. I apologize in advance if I bastardize anybody's name. I'm terrible at this, pronouncing everybody's name. The great Ario Man says, good morning. Morning. Top of the morning to you. And Mohammed from Pakistan, good morning. Good morning to everybody. Thank you for being here. People have got interviews tomorrow and everything, so that's great. We're going to get into it. Okay, so interview preparation. This is something I did a video on a long time ago, but preparation is the key to success. If you have a job interview coming up and you're nervous for it, and you don't know what questions they're going to ask, and it's kind of hard to get all this stuff straight in your head, preparation is key. And there are kind of many steps to preparation, and we're going to be talking about some of the best practices. Obviously, you guys have a head start because you're trying to learn answers to job interview questions and things like that. That's why you're here. So that's the first step, okay? That's the first step of the process, is practicing learning these questions, formulating your answers. Usually what people do is you listen to stuff I say, you listen to stuff other people say, and then you formulate your answers. And once you've figured that out, then it's a matter of memorizing them, right? Okay, and if you've done that, you're on the right track, but that's not all. Okay, that's not all. There's a lot of other things to do. The biggest one, which we're going to get into also later, is mock interviews. If you've got your answers worked out, that's not everything. Now you should practice actually doing an interview. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, and my recommendation, is to grab a friend or a family member. Okay? Grab a friend or a family member and say, hey, can you help me practice my interviewing skills? And get them to ask questions. Okay, you could write down some questions and get them to ask it, or you could tell them, you go on the internet, you find some questions and you ask me those questions. Okay, and we'll see how you do, right? And by practicing, you also tend to get a little bit nervous, which is good because that simulates the experience from a real interview, right? And you're going to conquer your nerves. You're going to be able to work despite your nerves kind of tingling and feeling a bit awkward, feeling a bit weird. And that's the greatest preparation you can do. So that's one of the best things that you can do and that I would recommend. Now, who we got here? Let's see. I don't know where I left off. I have to go back a bit. Let's see here. From India. Anurag. Hey, Anurag, I recognize you. Trinita says, hello, Santa. And hello from Brazil. Guess the capital, Brasilia, of course. C. Hey, if you want to remain anonymous, that's kind of the thing to do. Cynthia from New Jersey. I remember Trenton, New Jersey. I know that's not the capital, but Trenton, New Jersey. Nairobi, Kenya. Kenneth Kennedy from Kenya. That's got the alliteration early in the day. Nairobi, capital of Kenya. And Arap, as you say that? Arap, good morning from Kenya. Arap asking, during the interview, do you need to prepare about responding to specific questions about the profession you had applied? If yes, which criteria can you use? Yes. Okay, look. What you can expect, this is a very general question. What you can expect is a few generic questions. Things like, where are you going to be in 5 years? Okay. On top of that, they're probably going to ask you technical questions. Okay. Those are to do with the specific job that you're applying for, how to do your job. So if you've been in that job before or you've been in something similar, they're going to maybe ask you some technical questions just to see if you know your stuff. Okay. So yes, and obviously those are going to change completely depending on what job you're applying for and what your background is, okay? So if you're an accountant and you go for a job interview, they're probably going to ask you a couple of quick questions about accounting just to see if you know your stuff, okay? Accounting is probably not the greatest example to use because if you're an accountant, you usually have to get certified and that kind of means you know your stuff. Sort of like being a medical doctor. But for most other jobs, which aren't professions, you can expect them to ask you some technical questions, okay? So, I don't know. It's might not be the easiest thing to anticipate. Okay, the only thing I could say for that is just have the work that you do in your head, okay? And then whatever question they ask you, you could answer based on that. You know, if you've been out of work for, say, a year and you're going to an interview, sometimes you might not have even thought of actually how you do your job, and the details are not right at the forefront of your mind. So it's good to sort of just do a quick refresher in the time immediately before your interview. Now, someone originally had a question about salary. I don't want to leave anyone behind if I could possibly help it. Where was that? Negotiate an offer when a company is a lowballer. Listen, companies are lowballers, okay? They, just like when you go to the store and you have to buy something, milk, food, bread, whatever. It's like, you're going to try and pay as little as possible, right? You're going to shop around. You're going to try and find the best deal, right? Well, that's just how companies behave too, okay? So if they don't know anything about you, they're going to try and lowball you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how brilliant you are. They're going to try and lowball you as a matter of course. The secret is to get them to get to know you. That means to stay in the game long enough for them to start to see your value, see how awesome you are, for them to realize that, you're a very professional person and you've got a lot of experience, a lot of skills. You're great to deal with. You have wonderful communication skills. You just click with them. They enjoy dealing with you. Once they see all of that, okay, then they start to think, okay, this is a good candidate here. And once they feel that you're worth a lot, then they'll be okay with offering you more money. That's how these things work, okay? It's like if you want to buy some big item. You want to buy a car or something, right? If you don't know anything about the car, the first thing and the primary thing you're going to care about is how much does it cost, right? So if you're presented with several options, this one costs $10,000, this one costs $20,000, this one costs $50,000, you're going to start eliminating things by the price, right? It's only later if you get to spend some time with the car that's $50,000, you do a test drive, you pop the hood and look at the engine, look at the tires, and then you fall in love with it and you see, oh my God, this is the most amazing car. I want this car. That's when you start thinking, maybe I should pay $50,000 for this. Right? That's how it works. So companies are no different. Okay, that's how the salary question goes. When they ask you it early on, they are wanting to lowball you. Okay? The trick is to say whatever you need to say, basically, if they ask you this early on, to stay in the game long enough for them to see your value. That's how that works. Now, I've talked extensively about this. That's probably as deep as I'm going to go into that right now. I've done live streams. I've got my most popular video on my channel is about how to answer that question. So check that out. Oh, and I lost where I was in the feed again. But it's okay. It's great because there's so many questions. There's 45 of you guys here. Thank you so much for being here. It's very flattering that you're spending your day with me and you're interested enough to stick around. So I'm going to try and get to your questions here. Okay, here we go. Vanji's World says, good evening. Good evening. It's morning here. It's evening there. But we are on the level, and that's good. Ravi says, this is Ravi Kumar Chari from India. Hello, India. New Delhi, right? New Delhi, at least it used to be. Francisco Alvarez Bloom. What can you do during an interview that has no spark between you and the interviewer in order to get things on your benefit? Okay, that's a great question. There's several things you can do depending on the exact situation, okay? One thing you can do, if it's not extremely awkward, if it's appropriate, is first of all, number one thing before anything is to smile, okay? If you're looking at each other like this, right? You're talking to each other like this. I don't look very approachable. I don't look very like I'm enjoying this, right? But if your face kind of brightens up, I mean, the word is smile. I'm not really smiling. I'm kind of grinning. I'm trying to look pleasant. I'm trying to look approachable. I'm trying to look like I'm having a good time. That's kind of the first thing. If you have that facial expression, it's easier for other people to reciprocate and to lighten up. Okay? So that's kind of number one. Just look pleasant. Don't look awkward or afraid or like you're hating every second of this. Okay? That's kind of number one. Number two, if appropriate, you can try and make a joke. That isn't always possible, but sometimes, depending on the exact situation, that can help lighten the mood. It depends on your personality also, if that comes naturally or not. Okay? Sometimes people, they feel like, okay, I'm in a high pressure, professional, serious situation here. I can't make light of it. Okay, that will seem unprofessional. That will be bad for me. That's actually usually not the case. Usually, okay? So if that helps, that you can do that. Also, if possible, you can diverge from the exact subject at hand. Like if they ask you a question, okay, where you're going to be in 5 years, and you answer it professionally by talking about where you're going to be in 5 years. You can throw a question back, and you can not change the subject, but change it to more of a lighter mood and try and get a conversation going. For example, if somebody said, where do you want to be in 5 years? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? I could say, well, I expect to be here. Have you ever done that before? I haven't done that before. I'd love to do that. But you throw the question back, is that something that you've done? Right. And that can help get them sort of speaking a bit off the cuff, a bit off the script. It's a bit warm. It's a bit personable. And you have more of a conversation as opposed to an interrogation. Okay. So those three things can help. Smile, look pleasant. You can introduce a bit of humor if you're comfortable with that, or you can start throwing a question back at them to try and get more of a conversation happening. Maybe you lighten the mood a little, that kind of thing. Those are things you can try. But listen, sometimes it's just not possible. No matter how pleasant you are, no matter how amiable or accommodating you are, sometimes with other people, it just doesn't work. It's no fault of your own, okay? And that happens sometimes, and that's okay. Don't think that, it's a failing of yours necessarily, okay? If you try those things and maybe a couple other things and it still doesn't work, it's okay. You've done everything reasonably possible to do. So don't beat yourself up over it. Let's see, where were we here? I got to start catching up here. I'm an entire screen behind. Mohammed says, there is an interview of mine next week regarding a position of e-commerce email marketer. How should I be prepared? Well, okay, that's kind of the subject of the stream, so stick around and we will cover that. What the great Arlo man? I don't know. I've met many Arlo men in my time, and I've seen a lot of them come and go. But if you claim to be great, we'll see about this. Your question is, when you have a moment, can you briefly talk about cover letters and requirements? I'm in New York trying to find something corporate, but I'm worried I can't meet their needs. I am teachable, though. Cover letters and requirements. Well, my experience with cover letters is that people don't read them. I mean, obviously everything is going to vary. So I'm sure there's some people out there that read them and that count them as like the most important thing, but most people don't. Most people just kind of Originally, it was something to show. It had two functions. One, it was to show that you were serious. That's really why they threw up that barrier originally, or why most people tried to do that before, like the internet age. That was why they required a cover letter. It was another hurdle to see how serious you were. If you could write an entire page letter, on this job and why you're applying and what you can bring to it, things like this. That was kind of like to show you're serious, okay? The other purpose of a cover letter, at least these days, a lot of times when you're applying online, what you do a lot of times is you're sending an email, and the cover letter's purpose is to sort of introduce your resume, to say like, look, I'm applying for this job. Please find my resume attached. Here's why I'm applying. Here's where I saw the job. Here's what I'm hoping you will do. Like, can you get back to me if, there's an interview? That kind of thing. It's sort of like just a general introduction. Now, a lot of times your cover letter for a lot of jobs will be essentially the body of the email saying, hello, I'm applying for this position. Please find my resume attached. If you need anything else, please let me know. You can add more stuff in there. Like, the reason I'm applying is because I believe I meet all the requirements you're looking for. For example, I have this, right? Please find my resume. Please let me know if you need anything else. I'd very much like the opportunity to interview with you. Thank you very much. Right? So it can be actually quite brief. It can be anything more than like 3 sentences up to a full-blown page-long letter. Okay, so, oh, God, I lost where I was here. I have to either skip some stuff or I have to do this faster. But yeah, I mean, that's the deal with the cover letter. And requirements, it depends who you're talking to. If you're talking to a recruiter, recruiters only care about requirements. That's all they care about. That's their job. Their job is to source candidates that meet a set of requirements that they are given. Okay, so whoever is actually hiring, like the hiring manager, they give the recruiter a list of requirements. Here's the job description. Here's the recruiter. Here's the requirements. Go find me some candidates. Right? So it's the recruiter's job to present the hiring manager with a short list of candidates that look promising and meet all of the requirements. Okay, so when you're talking to a recruiter, what they care about are requirements. So they don't really care about how trainable you are. They don't really care about your wonderful qualities and how professional you are and how intelligent you are and all the wide variety of work you've done. I mean, you and I both know these are incredible traits and incredible things to have, but they're looking for something very specific. They're looking for requirements. So the best thing to do is, if it says in the job description, here's the requirements we're looking for. We want someone with this. Speak to them in those terms. Okay, make that obvious on your resume or in your job application and in the interview. If you're dealing with a recruiter, that's how to succeed. Okay? And not give any red flags of, that like with your personality or what you consider appropriate or your professionalism. Just don't give any red flags and speak to all the requirements. And that will help you satisfy a recruiter. I actually don't recommend that you get a job through a recruiter, but if you're doing that and they need you to submit cover letters and things like this, that's kind of the way to get past them. Okay, where was I here? We got the Arlo man. So hopefully that makes sense. Great Arlo man. Thank you for the question. Hello from Greece. Greece, capital Athens. Cynthia says Trenton is the capital. Trenton, New Jersey. Awesome. I did not know that. You learn something new every day. And the thing that you're going to learn today is that I need a haircut. I bet you didn't know that. Okay. Anurag says, what do I do if I don't know the answer to the question? Punch the interviewer in the face. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. If you don't know the question, depending on the situation, just make something up. Some people say if you don't know the question, you can tell them as a blanket response, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that, but I will get back to you with it. Personally, I don't think that's very effective. These interviews are sort of like one-shot deals. If you can't answer in the interview, they don't really care if you go away and think about it and come back and give them an answer. I mean, if you're up for an executive position, then maybe, but for most jobs, that's not really going to do too much. But if you can say, I don't know in a professional way, you say, that's a very interesting question. That's actually kind of a great question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. If nothing comes to your mind. Now, if I had to guess, I would say, and then just make something up. You could try that. That would be my recommendation. I know that's not what a lot of people recommend. That's what I recommend. And depending on who you talk to, that might actually fly. Okay, and underscoring that are several principles. Things like you never want to say anything bad about yourself. You never want to say anything bad about anyone. Okay? You want to keep it professional. Don't say anything inappropriate. Okay? You know, if you don't know, but you can maybe guess or make something up that, you know, is most likely as accurate as you can. Like if you're completely stumped by a question, they ask you something totally off the wall. And recruiters love to do that. They consider themselves so smart when they ask you something that you haven't prepared for. You know, some totally off the wall thing that, let's face it, it has nothing to do with anything a lot of times. You know, it's certainly not something that you would judge a candidate's ability on. But they think themselves so clever when they do this. So they could ask you something totally off the wall. You know, just answer the best you can and don't worry about it. You know, the other thing is that if you're just starting out, there's a couple of people here, I know you guys are just starting out. You learn interviewing skills by doing. The more interviews you do, the better you get. Right? And in the beginning, it's a learning experience. They're going to throw stuff at you that you may not have anticipated, and that's okay. Just answer the best you can. Don't get super nervous about it. Okay? As a default, I would say, like, wow, that's a really great question. I actually don't know the answer to that. Now, if you can guess, I would say, well, if I was to take a guess, I'd say maybe something like this. Right? If you're absolutely stumped and you don't know what to say and your mind goes blank, I suppose you could say, I don't know, but I could get back to you if you'd like. Or you could turn the question around at them. Remember I told you, you can ask a question back. You could say, do many people answer? Like if they said, what color rhinoceros are you? Or something like this. Some weird question you've never anticipated. You could say, wow, I don't know. That's a great question, actually. Do many people answer that correctly? Is this a pass-fail thing? You can ask them a question about it. Okay? And that usually lightens the mood, and that's a professional response. So that can help. Great question. Greetings from Indonesia. Indonesia used to be Jakarta, I think, right? Jakarta. From Fury. Fury. Whoa, there's a name. Good to meet you. My name is Bill Fury. How about Bill Raging Fury? That would be a great name. A type of person that when they shake your hand, they try to break every bone in your hand, that kind of thing. I've met people, I'm sure you guys have too, that bone crushing handshake because they think that they're an alpha of some kind. Those are fun people to meet. It's usually an overcompensation for something else. Zuresha? Is that how you say that? Zuresha? Hi from Pakistan. Pakistan is Islamabad. How to convince your interviewer to accept the salary demanded by you? Well, once again, that's a salary question. I've done many videos. My most popular video is on that. And that's not really the topic of today. It's a long question. I did an hour-long video talking about salary negotiation. Look, the short answer, like I said earlier, was you have to stay in the game long enough for them to see your value. Okay? A lot of times, an interviewer will ask you the salary question very early in the process. It's their first interview with you. One of the first questions they ask you is, how much money do you need? They're not asking it because they want to actually try and satisfy your demands. They're asking it because if you say a number too high, they eliminate you right there and then. That's why they're asking that question. So you don't want to give a number. That's the bottom line. You want to stay in the game long enough. Okay? And if you do the entire interview and they're still considering you, maybe they call you back for a second interview, depending on what job it is. They get to know you a bit more. That's good. They're seeing your value. They're seeing what you can bring to the role. Then, if they've seen a lot of valuable things towards the end of the process, they'll want to offer you more money. Okay? That's how that works. And sometimes it may not be possible to reach an agreement. For example, if the lowest amount of money you would ever take is, say, $50,000, and the highest amount of money they would ever pay the candidate is $40,000, you just can't reach an agreement. It just doesn't work. Okay? So it's not always possible. All you can do is convince them and show them your value as much as possible. So for that, you need to spend the interviews telling them what you know, what you have, what you've done. You don't want to spend the interviews engaging on questions where they ask you something about something on your resume you did 10 years ago. What was this? What'd you do there? What kind of work was this? And then you spend 20 minutes talking about something you did 10 years ago. It has nothing to do with the job. It has nothing to do with demonstrating your value. It's just a waste of time. Okay? That's the short answer. There's a lot to that question. So just check out some of my videos. I did a 2-hour live stream on that like a week ago, I think. Something like that. 2 weeks ago. Irshad Ahmed says, sir, thanks a lot for your efforts in helping us. My pleasure, Irshad Ahmed. I try and do my best. I'm just flattered you guys are here listening to me ramble on about this stuff. Here we go. Okay, I gotta get faster at this here. Good morning, question mark. Good morning? How to prepare for a government interview versus a private interview. I do believe that should be different, so please differentiate. Thank you. Well, as a general rule, government cares about process, and they care about more of the requirements, whereas a private sector interview, generally speaking, they care more about your capabilities, what you could bring to the role. That's a very general statement, but I mean, that's the big difference. Okay? Government is, this sounds bad when I say it, but it's not, it's usually not a meritocracy. They don't always hire based on how accomplished you are. They might look at a lot of other factors. Okay? So, whereas in the private sector, generally, they tend to hire based on accomplishments and capabilities, okay, experience, things like this. Kenneth Kennedy, please assist me, sir, for tomorrow. I do have an accounting interview. Please, I seek directives over the question. Tell us about yourself. Okay. Yeah, I've done a video on that. One of my most popular, it's got millions and millions of views. Please check that out. It's the most popular video currently, I think, on my channel, with like nearly 2 million views. Something like that. The short answer is any kind of introduction question, like, tell me about yourself, please introduce yourself. The answer to that is you spend 30 seconds to 45 seconds summarizing your resume. Don't start saying material that's not written on your resume, okay? I know some people advise you the opposite of that. They're wrong. The material on your resume is safe. They read your resume and they invited you for an interview. The material on your resume did not eliminate you, okay? So if they say, please tell me about yourself, you say, okay, no problem. Well, and you start with your education. I have this, I have that. And then go down your work experience. I started out doing this for 5 years, then I worked here, then I worked there, and then I worked here most recently, and you end with, and that's what brings me here today and why I'm excited to learn more about this opportunity. 30 seconds, 45 seconds max. Don't waste a lot of time talking about what you did in the past. It's not relevant to why you're here. The whole purpose of you being in the interview is to tell them how you have everything they're looking for, and you're the right person for this job. You're the person that they should select. So you don't do that by talking about what you did in your last job and how it went. Okay? So you give a very quick summary of your resume, and you bring the conversation up to this job, because that's what you're here to talk about. That's how you answer that. I'm losing track of this stream here. I've got to move this along. I'm 2 screens behind now. Okay, how to explain gap in their education without saying or without hiding. Listen, here's what I'm going to do. Because I'm pressed for time and I'm losing the race, if you're asking a question that I've done a video on, I'm just going to refer you to that video, okay? And it will be a nice compact answer. So Irshad is asking about a resume gap. I've done a video on that. Do a search for the company's expert resume gap or work gap. And that's my answer on it. Kenneth, please assist me. I have an interview. Tell us about yourself. I popped in to see your acting skills. Are you talking about me? My acting skills? The key is to be very dramatic. CEOs are at their best when they're very dramatic. Politicians too, for that matter. Just get very emotional and go to pieces, and everything falls into place. Congratulations, Theophilus, if I'm saying that right. Way to go. Fina says, why the interviewer judge candidate based on his presentation instead of the candidate's ability to do the actual job? Thank you. Because a job interview is a very ineffective way of assessing a candidate. We have known this for years. The problem is that there's not too many other practical alternatives that you can substitute. The way to get to know someone is to actually get to know someone. That takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of manpower. That costs a lot of money. So that's the reason why a lot of organizations streamline the process. Because honestly, at the end of the day, for most sort of worker level jobs, they don't really care too much who they get. They're looking for a warm body. So you have to go through this ridiculous, artificial, ineffective dog and pony show to get a job. Okay? Now, if you're doing executive recruiting and they're hiring executives, people that you really have to find the right person, because they're going to be given the crown jewels. They're going to be given the keys to the kingdom, and they could screw things up majorly if they get it wrong. That's where they actually go a lot deeper and get to know the person and do a lot more things, okay? That's also where things like networking and all that, verifiable accomplishments, things like that, that's where that becomes a lot more important, okay? Now, Fina, what I said is very negative, okay? It's a dog and pony show. It's not very effective. But the good news is that knowing that they only really scratch the surface, they don't go deep, okay? Knowing this, it's possible to make yourself look awesome, okay? And knowing, I mean, that's why a lot of people are here, to learn canned answers to job interview questions. I mean, the fact that you're learning an answer to a question, and if you get the answer right, it gives you the job, that proves that this whole thing is just a farce, isn't it? It really is, And what makes me kind of laugh is that a lot of recruiters and things, not all of them, there's some good ones out there, but a lot of them, they actually think that, they can spot talent and that what they do is effective. We have data to show that it's completely ineffective. They've done lots of studies on this over decades, and that's what they've concluded. Okay, so why are they doing it? Why are they judging you on the surface, the appearance? Because that's all they see. They don't investigate you any further to go deeper in most cases. So that's all they have to go on. That's why at this game, people that have very good interpersonal skills, that are very likable, they have a lot of charisma, they tend to do very well, regardless of their actual abilities. This process is unfortunately skewed towards that. The good news is that you don't have to play by their rules, and I've talked about this on my channel. You don't have to get a job by applying for a posted position and doing job interviews with a recruiter. That is, in fact, not the most popular way people get jobs. Most people that get jobs don't get them like that. They get them through networking. Something like 75% of all people that get jobs, they get it through networking. So you don't need to go through this process. And I always have to say this because a lot of people, they make the wrong assumption here if they're new to this. They assume that networking means you just have to know a lot of people. Incorrect. You can be a total introvert. I'm quite an introvert, actually. And I've used networking to build up a consulting business over the last 10 years since I quit the corporate world. You can use social networking, you can use the internet to do networking, to go around the standard HR procedure, because that's what most people do anyway. Anyway, okay, I could go on forever, but I got to get back to this. How can you nicely withdraw your application if you got hired elsewhere? That's not really too much of a problem. Just you contact them, you say, I'd like to withdraw my application. Thank you very much. You're polite. Okay. At that point, it doesn't matter what else you say. Even if you were to try and say, well, I hope you consider me for another opportunity in the future. That doesn't do any good. You just withdrew. Okay. You demonstrated that you're the type of person that they considered, and then you withdrew from that. The proof's in the pudding. So there's not too much you can say that will repair the damage caused by the evidence of their own eyes. Right? So don't worry about it. Just be professional. Say, thank you very much. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I have to withdraw my application. Sorry for the inconvenience. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much. Take care. Thanks, Bill, making me a greater Arlo man. I'm good. I'm happy about that. That's great. We must all be the best Arlo men we can be, at least us guys. How are you able to forecast star questions that may be asked? Well, Marcia or Marcia, depending where you are. That's a great question. Star is simply a format that you use to answer behavioral questions. Okay? You will not be able to predict behavioral questions. Okay? Behavioral questions, there's like literally a million possible behavioral questions they could ask. It's not possible to prepare for them all. So here's what you do. You go equipped with 10 stories. Okay? You rehearse 10 stories from your past. Okay? 5 of them will be your success stories, your greatest accomplishments. 5 of them will be failures. Okay, a time you had a conflict with your boss or a coworker, a time where you were under stress, you felt stressed, things like this. Okay, you practice answering those questions, telling those stories in the STAR format in a very compact way. like a minute to tell your story. Situation, task, action, result, okay? And then, when you get to the interview, whatever question they ask you, okay? Whatever behavioral question, meaning a question that you have to answer with a story from your past, what you're going to do is you're going to pull out one of those 10 stories. I don't know why I'm doing this. This is 5, but 10, okay? You're going to pull out one of those 10 stories and you're going to adapt it to the question that they're asking. Okay? That way you have a question right on the tip of your mind, like an answer right on the tip of your mind that kind of fits the question they're asking. Okay? And that's how you can answer any behavioral question. Okay? The key is getting 10 stories from your past that, you know, they run a good cross section of different situations. Okay? You know, a time you did something original, a time you did something on your own initiative and succeeded, a time you failed, but it wasn't a total failure, you managed to salvage the situation. Okay? Keeping in mind that any story you tell, they're going to assume that if that's what you did in the past, it's the same thing as what you would do if they were to hire you. Okay, so don't tell a story about something you did when you were just learning, you did the wrong thing, you now know that's not what you do. Okay, don't tell that story. Because if you tell that story, they're going to assume that that's what you would do today if they were to hire you and put you in that situation. Okay? So there you go. Hopefully that helps. But I have videos on that. Check out those videos. They're called behavioral interview questions. They're the cutting edge of job interviewing in an extremely boring way. Thank you, MA. You're awesome too. And I mean that. Giannis? Is that how you say it? How do you answer behavioral interview questions when you have almost zero work experience? Interview tomorrow is a mining engineer and I haven't been able to ask a single technical question. You don't have zero experience. You might have zero career work experience, but you don't have zero work experience. I mean, if you've been through some kind of educational system, some kind of educational qualification, you've done project work, you've worked in groups, you've met deadlines, you've taken initiative, you've risen to challenges. Those are all experiences. Talk about what you have done, okay? You completed a project. You had to work with other people, but you passed the course. You met the deadline, okay, despite challenges. So you have a lot of experiences. You could go outside of your experiences in education to things maybe in your personal life. You know, if you've ever done a project, if you've ever accomplished a thing outside of school, right? I'm sure you've had challenges in your life. Okay. So presumably you've applied for the job. They can tell you have no career work experience. That's not a shock to them. They can see that in your resume. They can see that in your job application. When you go there and they ask you behavioral interview questions, you're going to be pulling out examples from the things you have done. Okay. And a big part of, being suitable for a job is not the technical skills. If they invite you for an interview, if you get a job interview, they say, we'd like to interview you, come on down. That signals that your technical skills are sufficient. If you were not technically equipped to do the job, they wouldn't even be interviewing you. You wouldn't make the interview, okay? So you can assume that on paper, your technical skills, your qualifications, that kind of thing, they're sufficient. Now they want to get to know you. Do you have any personal problems? Can you communicate? Can you conduct yourself professionally? Can you work well with others? Can you take direction? Can you resolve conflicts? And all of that stuff you've done by virtue of you getting a degree in mining engineering or whatever you have. Okay? So don't sweat it. Just rehearse that stuff. Okay? Oh, I'm still like a screen behind, 2 screens behind. Got a lot of weird questions before. A recruiter once asked me, how lucky do you consider yourself 1 to 10? Rate your personality 1 to 10. Okay, look, for those, you have to just, I hate to say it, but you got to be able to answer them on the fly. They're ridiculous questions. Recruiters think they're clever by asking this stuff. They think it reveals all kinds of stuff about you. If I was asked those, it said, how lucky do you consider yourself? I'd say, I consider myself very lucky. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I've been through education. I've had work experience, and I am lucky enough to be considered for this position. So yes, I consider myself very lucky. 1 to 10. So I would say like an 8 or 9. Another funny one, rate your personality 1 to 10. I would say about 7 or 8. 7, 8, maybe 9, depending on the situation. I don't want to say 10 because that could come over as arrogant, right? Between you and me. I don't want to say 3 or 5. I mean, that signals there's something wrong with you, right? So I would say 7 to 9, maybe 8 or a 9, right? I can get along with many types of people. I try and communicate professionally, yet in a personable way. And I try to work well with others. So, yeah. Oh, 1 being a robot and 10 being a psycho. Are those opposites? Is robot the opposite of psychopath? I thought robot and psychopath were both together on one end of that continuum. I don't know. You could put like robot / psychopath on one end and your mother on the other. How about that? In that case, I would place myself right in the middle, about a 5, between robot and psychopath and your mother. Personable, yet competent. I mean, these questions are, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just so silly. Advice to people who aren't native English. Practice your English. If you're getting a job in English, practice your English. Practice written English. Practice spoken English. It's kind of funny because I was thinking of doing another course this year, and my next course would be how to communicate professionally in English, doing business communication. I used to teach a course where I taught actually a lot of international students, how in your written English, when you're writing English, you can communicate any idea, no matter how complex, in such a way that people will understand it. They'll never have to go back and reread a single sentence. So I was thinking of creating that course later this year. But just practice. And your spoken English, same thing. Listen to people who speak well. They have a high level of English. They're very professional and they're very articulate. And if you're learning English for a business context, listen to people speaking English in a business context, because it's different from different contexts, like, sort of an artistic context or just a personal context. Okay, so that's what I would say. It's Enos from Egypt living in Slovakia. So Egypt is Cairo, Slovakia. Oh, like Czechoslovakia. It used to be Prague, right? It was Czechoslovakia. It's like the Czech Republic right now. So yeah, you got me there. That one I don't know. But hello, I'm glad you're here. Okay, how do you handle an interview that's not relevant to your background? For instance, a general engineer who's facing a project officer interview. How do you handle an interview that's not relevant to your background? Like they're asking you questions that are not related to your job? Is that what you're talking about? That's a tough one. Like if you apply for an engineer job, they invite you down for an interview and then they ask you questions about fine art. Is that what you're talking about? I don't think I can really advise you what to do there. That depends on how it goes. But that's weird. I mean, that's a major red flag for them, why you might not want to work for them if they're that incompetent that they would do that. In case is by the what? The employer should publish on any salary for the job if they keep asking about expectation. Well, look, I told you about salary. Maybe just go watch my video on, it's the #1 most popular video on my channel. It's got like 4 million views or something. Check that out. I've also done other videos about salary. It's not something I can answer in like 2 minutes. How would you recommend or negotiate if you are being interviewed for an executive position by another country at a big company? How would I recommend to negotiate? Like, are you talking about negotiating a job offer? Once again, not something I can answer in a minute. I've done a video that's an hour long called Salary Negotiation. So if you're asking about salary, that would answer that. Now, if it's a general negotiation, usually the way negotiation works is if you want a certain thing, okay, you have to, usually how it goes is you have to give things to get something. So you say, look, okay, I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll give you that, but I need this. If you just play hardball with every single point and you never give anything, it's usually not going to go very well. Okay. So, if you get a job offer and let's say the benefits aren't quite what you were hoping, let's say there's less vacation than you were hoping, and let's say the salary is not bad, but it could be better. You might, usually for it to go well, you would have to say, okay, listen, this is less than what I was hoping. I was hoping for this many weeks vacation, but you're only giving me this. Listen, I'll give you that. Okay. Like, that's fine. I can make that swing. I'll make it work. This other thing, the benefits, I was hoping to get this, but okay, fine. That's fine. I understand that maybe your hands are tied. It's a company-wide benefit program. No problem. In my previous job, I actually had better benefits than this, but I understand that, you can't really give me anything extra and make an exception. However, the salary here, I need you to change that, to bump that up to this. Okay, if you bump that up, I'll accept everything else and I can start wherever you need. So if there's any room for them to negotiate, I mean, that's kind of how you would do it. You'd sort of give, and then ask or say, look, I need this. Okay. Now, being aware, of course, that anytime you bluff, you have to be ready for them to call your bluff. Okay. So don't just say, oh, I need this, I'm prepared to walk over it, when the truth is you're absolutely desperate for a job. You have no other options but to take this. Okay. Okay. Negotiation is also based on knowing what you're going to do depending on what they do. You can't control them. A lot of times you can't even influence them. You can't even persuade them. But the only thing you can do is you can be clear on what you will do depending on what they say. Okay. And if you have other options, you create other options for yourself, that gives you power. You could say, no, sorry, that doesn't work for me. And if they say, well, that's all we have. And I say, okay, well, unfortunately, this is not going to work. Thank you. And a lot of times they're bluffing. So when you walk away, they go, wait. Let's not be hasty. Fine, we'll give you that. Okay, how far behind am I now? 2 pages? Fina, no, I already did that one. In case salary, how would you recommend? How would you answer Moonlight? How would you answer a question where they gave you a situation? Do you use the rest of the STAR-L model? What do you mean by situation? They give you a situation. They say, let's imagine this happened. What would you do? Is that what you're referring to? You would not you would not use the star L model. It doesn't make any sense, because star L model is like the format for telling a story very quickly. This is what was going on. This is what I had to do. This is what I did. This is how it turned out. This is what I learned, right? Like you're describing a story very, very in a compact way. So if they give you a situation that doesn't make sense to use that format, you just sort of answer what you would do, I guess, depending on what situation they ask you. Big Show, I had an interview question. Tell me a time when you were going to an important meeting and a senior director runs into you and asks about a project update. Yeah, like I can't answer that for you. They're asking about a time when that happened to you. So there isn't a canned answer for that. Like I said earlier, the way to answer that type of question, which is a behavioral interview question, is to have 10 stories from your past that cover, a good cross-section of things. And you have those rehearsed and they're on the tip of your mind. So when they ask you that question, you pull out the one of the one of the 10 that most closely matches that, and bam, you say it. Okay. Now, if you happen to remember another time that more closely matches the question they're asking, and you can think of that in the spur of the moment in the interview, sure, you could say that. But a way to not flub any of these questions is to have those 10 stories rehearsed. I mean, that's a very generic situation. Tell me about a time when you're about to go to a meeting and somebody asks you how it's going, right? If you've ever been to a meeting, if you've ever been given a task, that's probably a situation you'll hopefully be able to answer, assuming you have work experience. What should I consider on doing international interviews? What if I don't have a visa? I'm not the best person to ask for international immigration issues and work visas. Besides, those change depending on what countries that are involved, right? So it's going to be different depending on what specific countries. Where are you and where are you going to interview? Okay, so maybe contact somebody in the host country about their immigration issues for your country, and fill in the blanks wherever those are. VBS Pharma, if somebody asks, how long would you be interested to stay or work for us? How do you see that? Listen, that's a thinly disguised version of where do you see yourself in 5 years, which is a standard interview question. Okay? The short answer is, what they're wanting to hear is right here. Don't say you would rather be somewhere else, or in 5 years, I'll have left this job behind and I'll have moved on to something else. Don't say that. That's a test. You see, they're trying to see if you say that, you're eliminating yourself. You're not the right person. It doesn't make sense for them to offer you this job because you really don't want it. You'd rather be somewhere else. Okay? So a great answer to that is just say, well, I expect to be advancing based on my work performance. I mean, that's totally generic, but it's very hard to eliminate somebody with that answer. And failing that, you can always just say, right here, I like this kind of work, and I'd like to be doing this kind of work, So how long would you be interested to stay working for this? Well, for the foreseeable future. I like this kind of work. I'd like to do this kind of work, and, I hope to be doing it as long as I'm able to, right? That's the answer they want to hear. Whether or not that's true, that's what they want to hear. Look, we all know that most people have some ambitions. If you're 20 years old and they're asking you this question, do you really think you're going to be there for your entire life? Of course not. It's stupid, right? Hopefully, you will be advancing to bigger and better things, right? Okay? But what they want to hear is that if they offer you the job, you are right where you want to be. and you don't have ambitions to leave this to go to do what you really want to do. Okay? It's a pass-fail question. It's an elimination question. That's what they're asking the question for. What happens if I show I'm stressing out during the interview? I don't know. You show that you're human. Look, practice makes perfect, okay? Conquering nerves is something that most people have to do and they have to learn throughout their career, okay? Like with public speaking skills, same thing, okay? Actually, negotiation skills are a little bit like that too, because you have to say no to people. It can be intimidating, being the one that rocks the boat and annoys the other person, right? By saying, no, that doesn't work for me. Same thing, okay? You don't worry about it. Everybody starts out with feeling the nerves, okay? Everyone, unless you're a sociopath, everyone feels that. You feel nervous. It's with practice that you eventually conquer that, okay? The more you do, the better you get. So don't worry about it. You're human, okay? What you can do is you can prepare. You can have rehearsed things to say when you don't know what to say and things like that, okay? But just prepare as much as you can. That helps. And then do a lot of interviews. And the more you do, the better you will get, I guarantee. Don't feel bad. Thank you, Marcia. That's very nice. Or Marcia. That's very nice of you to say. Can we be damn genuine with the interviewer? No. Because most of the time the answers hurt them. I'd love to be mostly transparent to them and they deserve to know what they're hiring. Listen, everything's going to work sometimes, okay? So there may be situations out there that you find yourself in where that works. And great, Unfortunately, in the vast majority of situations, that does not work, okay? Your reward for being blatantly honest about yourself and about your outlook, it will not go over well. Okay? If you don't believe me on this, look how politicians behave. Look how any sort of public person, public figure behaves. A lot of times, the more real they are, the more it doesn't go well for them. Okay, I'm not saying be totally fake. I'm just saying, listen, these people don't know you. They don't know you at all. They're judging you on just having met you. It's the first impression. And if they ask you, what would you rather do in 5 years? And you say, oh, I'd rather be somewhere else. Thinking that they will appreciate your honesty. Vast majority of situations they won't. They'll say, okay, well, clearly you're not the right candidate for this because if we offer it to you, you'd rather be somewhere else, right? Now, a lot of other people would rather be somewhere else too, but they didn't say that. They gave the right answer and said, hey, I love doing this job. I'd like to be right here. This is my ambition. And then the idiot recruiter who only judges on external appearances says, they've got the right attitude. We should hire them. Okay? That's what's going on here. Okay? Now, like I said, this is a completely ridiculous, artificial dog and pony show. It's a very bad way of assessing people. There are more genuine ways of assessing people. That's the networking route that actually a lot of people take. Okay? But what's more important than being real is, in the professional world, is being professional. Okay? For example, if a customer is trying to buy something and you're the customer service person, you can keep it real and say, you know what, you just really annoy me. And quite frankly, I don't feel like dealing with this kind of crap right now. So maybe you need to go to somewhere else to go and get your product. That's real. And people may appreciate your candor and your honesty, but is that good for business? No, it isn't, right? And so we're living in that world here, unfortunately. if everyone was honest in that like all the time and it always paid off, this process would be completely different. Okay. Now, if I tell this to young people, I'm sure most young people won't believe me. They'll say, you're full of it. That's crap. The world shouldn't work like that. I agree with you. The world shouldn't work like that. But it does, unfortunately. Believe me, I wish it didn't, but it does. And usually you learn that over, when you get a little older. And so people in their 30s, they kind of, generally, they have realized this by then. Okay. So that's kind of what we're up against. This is what makes this process so challenging. Because if you could just answer honestly and then get hired for a lot of questions, it would be a lot easier. Hanging with Courtney, thank you. That's very nice of you. Ines says, Bratislava. Okay, was that the capital of Slovakia? Was that where we're talking from? Yeah, Slovakia, Bratislava. Okay, yeah. Yeah, there was some stuff that went on in Bratislava in World War II. I know there was some things happening there. Hertis, how often can I switch jobs without being seen as a job hopper? Is once every year too often? Software developer. Well, listen, software developers, you're generally in high demand. So a lot of the rules kind of go out the window if you're in high demand, okay? In most other professions, if you change jobs every year, even today in 2022, that still might be a red flag. Okay. If you were to change jobs after, like, say, 2 years, 3 years, that's fine. 1 year or less, that's a red flag for most people. But if you're in high demand, I think they would waive that. Hi, I have a back injury and have been off work. How do I tell a new employer about an injury in an interview? Thanks. Well, that's going to depend on what country you're in. I get questions like that from Americans. And Americans they have a different attitude about that stuff, at least versus where I am in Canada. Companies there, they have private health insurance. So things work a little bit differently. Where I am, we have like public health insurance, so it doesn't matter that much. But in America, that would be a big point of concern. So it depends kind of where you are. It depends on how they assess risk, okay? And what the mechanism is for them to find out about stuff. For example, where I am in Canada, if you get injured on the job, okay, let's say you're a welder and you have been welding for 30 years, okay? And you've been holding a welding torch like this all day, every day for 30 years. And finally, you got some weird shoulder injury. Bam. Something pops in your arm. You got to go to the hospital. You can't weld for 6 months while you're recovering. Okay? The way that works is that even though, let's say the company just hired you as a welder, right? And the reason you got this injury was because of welding like this for 30 years in other companies, right? Not this company. In other companies, they didn't give you the proper equipment. They didn't provide an ergonomic workplace or whatever. But it's because of them that you're injured. Kind of doesn't matter. The current company is the one left holding the bag. So the effects of their insurance premiums and all that stuff fall to the current company. Okay. But I'm in Canada, and the effects of the insurance premiums and the insurance, it's kind of minimal. In the United States, I know it works differently, but I don't know all the details of how it works in other countries. So maybe talk to a workplace health and safety and environmental person in your country, wherever you are, or wherever you're applying, and they'll be able to give you some detailed answers about how that works. Thank you, Goksu, if I'm saying that right. Thank you very much. Okay, we got a super chat here from Darkman Jeff. That's an awesome name. I'd love to have a name that cool. How often should you interview, even if you're satisfied with your current position? Well, if you're satisfied with your current position and you see a future in it and things are going great, and there's not a lot of risk that it could all just end instantly, like you wouldn't get laid, like you might be happy in your job, but maybe there's a risk that you could get laid off any moment because the industry is going through some stuff. Okay, if you're really secure and you're happy, you would not interview very often. Okay. You would interview more if you're currently employed, but either you don't feel secure in your job or you honestly hate it, or it's regarded as a dead-end job and that you don't see much of a future in it. Obviously, that's when you would want to keep your options open. So that's what I would say. I mean, it's basically personal preference. If you're happy in your job, you want to stay there, it looks like you're going to stay there, but you're thinking that you should maybe interview for other jobs. It also depends on your motivation. Are you interviewing to have more career options, or are you interviewing to get good at the process? Like depending on what your motivation is to do it, that's going to be a different answer. But I don't think it's a huge priority. If you feel secure and you like what you do and you don't think that there's a lot of changes that are likely to happen, it's not a very high risk type job. I don't think you really have to do much of that unless you have personal goals for being able to, excel in interview type situations, either job interviews, informational interviews, negotiations, anything like that, networking. That's what I would say. If you have any more specifics, feel free to send those in, and I can maybe be more specific. But thank you for the super chat, Darkman Jeff. Hopefully that was at least somewhat helpful. Min says, those are really great, knowledgeable, especially students like me who are starting to enter job environments. Love your suggestion. Listen, if you're a student, okay, you're way ahead of the curve just by being here, just by doing self-improvement and getting some awareness of the job market and, how interviews and hiring works. That's great. Okay. Like you're well ahead of the game by doing that. So well done. You keep learning about this stuff and about careers and this kind of thing. A lot of students, they're just oblivious to this. They haven't thought that far ahead. And I'm not judging them too harshly because depending on what you're taking in school, it can be damn hard. You need all your effort and focus just to get through school. Okay? Depending on what you're taking. So I'm not talking down to students. I was a student myself. I took engineering and that was damn hard. I didn't have any leftover energy to look at like the job market or look at companies or anything or learn business. So you're doing really well. I need to pause for some Red Bull. Don't drink Red Bull at a job interview or any sort of really caffeinated drink. Tends to make you more nervous and more jittery. If anything, you want something that has the opposite effect, right? It kind of relaxes you, right? Okay, Sushant, if I'm saying that right, Sushant, says, can switching a company regularly, once in 2 years, create negative impression of us? Can our new employer get insecure because of such history? Yes, depending on the industry and depending on the economy. Yes. Okay. 2 years is not the worst thing in the world. If you were to change companies every 3 years, I don't think it would be an issue for most foreseeable situations. No one would have an issue with that. 3 years is good. Okay. 2 years, that might be pushing it. Like, look, if you had a resume that had, 7 jobs on it, and all of them were 2 years, 2 years here, 2 years here, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, right? Now, if that was in an industry where people on average stay there a lot longer than 2 years, like say government type jobs, on average, people stay in government jobs for a lot longer than 2 years. Okay. It's something like 10 years on average. So if you're in the government sector and you're like hopping jobs every 2 years and you've got like, say 10 years of work experience where like it's chopped into 2-year jobs, that would be a red flag. Okay. There are other industries where 2 years, like the average length that people stay at a job is 2 years or less. Okay. Like sort of entry level jobs and things like that. If you're flipping burgers and stuff, you're working as a barista, stuff like that. Or barista. I believe the average length of employment is less than 2 years for those. So that would not be a problem, right? It depends what industry you're talking about. Okay. You can get the stats on that industry relatively simply, I believe. You can go to, you can do a Google search, like average length of employment in whatever industry. Just Google that, and sometimes it'll just tell you. You might have to specify by country or region. But yeah, so it could go both ways depending on what you're doing. Get more specific information on what you're doing, and that will be your answer. Okay. Amir, I'm in the UK. Awesome. Right on. I love the UK. I have been there many, many times. I don't get back as often as I'd like. But London is awesome. I know that if you're not from London, people may not share that opinion, but I think it's awesome. I would not want to live there, but it's a great place to visit. Darkman Jeff, that makes sense. Thanks a lot. No problem, Darkman Jeff. Thank you again. Stanislav, do you believe that 10 years in one big corporation is enough? And do you need to change your employer to keep on growing professionally? Well, when you say, is it enough? I mean, it depends on what your goals are to know if it's enough. Do you have to keep changing your employer to grow professionally? Yes. Beyond a certain point, yes. People that spend their entire career in one organization don't have an objective view of their industry or of any of business in general. They just don't. It's just that simple. Okay, because you've only seen one way of doing things, really. And you are oblivious to the fact that other people make it work completely differently. And a lot of times, some of the things that they're doing are superior to the way you've seen it done. People who spend huge chunks of their career in one organization, they tend to be very close-minded, very insular. Now, that can be seen as a strength if you're looking to climb the ladder internally in that organization. Okay? If that business is doing well, if that organization is doing well, there's no obvious need for change, then that can be a good move. Because if nothing else, you gain trust by having been there so long. At least that's the impression it gives. We all know that that could go both ways, but that's how it's perceived. If you stay there a long time, you appear to be a good employee because you haven't been fired, right? You haven't left, thus showing your disloyalty. You're signaling that you're happy there. You're signaling that people are happy with you. okay, and that you do your job well. That's what it tends to be perceived as. Okay, whether or not that's strictly true, that's what it tends to be perceived as. So that can give you an advantage if you want to be promoted internally, okay? But if the business is not doing well and the leadership has half a brain, they will get external candidates, people that can bring in change, people that have a much more objective view about how this organization is doing, not someone who's just going to continue the status quo, right? So depending on what your goals are, 10 years I don't think is unreasonable. You could stay someplace for 10 years, but after 10 years, the amount that incrementally you're learning every year goes right down. Okay? Even if they're moving you into different roles within the organization, you're still within that culture and that environment. You're ignorant of like other ways of doing things. A lot of times, something I've seen in my career is that people over here are struggling to solve a problem that, unbeknownst to them, has been completely solved a long time ago over here in this other organization or this other industry. And if you've seen both, you can come in and transplant that solution into this new environment, and they think you're a genius. There is some advantages to having moved around a little bit. Okay, so I mean, that's my personal opinion. It depends what your goals are, depends on what organization, what they value. How long will you stay in a company? Well, yeah, basically what I said. Software industry, India. Software, I mean, the software business, it's fast moving. Like, there's new things coming in all the time. Skills from 10 years ago are usually not valued because, things change very quickly in that business. So, some rules don't apply to that world, but it has some new rules, right? Because of this. Like things like seniority may not always be that valuable, right? My pleasure, Sushant, if I'm saying that right. You're welcome. Harshit Joshi. Hi, from India. Could you please guide that how to change job while changing to higher job position? Okay, so getting promoted through job hopping, basically. I've done a video on that, actually. You should check it out. Well, listen, there's basically two ways to get a job, okay? Two broad categories. One is through standard channels. You find out about a job, you find a job posting that's posted publicly. These days, usually it's on the internet. You apply with a job application, you give your resume, and then you go talk to a recruiter and then maybe a hiring manager, and they make you an offer, okay? That's what I would call standard channels. Or you go around standard channels. Standard channels are, I don't know if they're really good for any particular thing, but they, if you have exactly what they're looking for, then that's a great way to get a job. And if you're good at interviewing, that's a great way to get a job. If you don't have exactly what they're looking for, like if you're changing careers, for example, it's not a great way to get a job. It's very hard to get a job through standard channels if you're changing careers. You might be the most incredibly talented, capable person ever, but because you don't have a lot of experience in the new job you're going to, because you're changing careers, they won't hire you. That's usually how recruiters think. They tend to view things in years of experience. That's the most powerful metric they use. And your years of experience will be zero if you're going to a new career, right? So the way people accomplish that, for example, is they go around standard channels. They get jobs through networking, okay? Check out some videos on my channel. There's a video I did called How Successful People Get Jobs, okay? And that will give you sort of a peek into getting how one goes about getting a job when you're not going through standard channels. Okay. Motec, is that how you say that? Motec Games? Hey, I'm applying for a cabin crew and I watched every interview video of yours. Can you give me some rare, important tips? Be very selective on whose plane you fly in. I once managed a small airline and I had to deal with ground crews, cabin crews, flight attendants, all that kind of stuff. And be very selective of who owns the plane. And just ask around the reputation of that. So if you're applying for an airline, fine. If you're applying for private planes, things like that, I guess in all situations, I would say just ask around. Try and get the reputation of the organization or outfit that you're going to be working for. Don't take them at face value. They always say they're great to work for. Some of them are not great to work for. If you've seen all my videos, then you know how to interview. Try and get those through networking if you can, okay? Because then you have the ability to see what it's really like before you jump in. That's what I say. Taha Khan, what do you suggest about a question raised regarding confidentiality? Like generally we just say about the prevention of documents and some sort of privacy of business always in need of. Kindly share. Okay, your English is a little garbled, but I think what you're asking about is like in a job interview, if they ask you a question where in order to answer it, you'd have to reveal confidential information about your previous employer, right? I think that's what you're asking about. Yeah, see, that's a tough one. The fact that they would ask something like that is a little bit of a red flag. Then, if they give you a hard time when you say, like, well, I can't really reveal that, it's kind of confidential business information. And if they give you a hard time over that answer, they don't just say, okay, fair enough. That's a much bigger red flag. Okay. You see, the thing is, some companies, they engage in industrial espionage, right? Like, let's say I was running a company and something that's on my mind, okay, that's important to me is my competitors, what they are doing internally, okay? For example, how much are they paying their employees? If I knew that would help me, okay? So I will want to know how much my competitors are, say, paying their employees. So how would I find this out? Well, a very easy way to find it out is for me to post a job, put up a job posting publicly saying, I'm hiring for this position. Then when people apply, people that work for my competitors, I invite them to an interview and I say, so tell me, like, how much are they paying you at that company, right? And then the candidate tells me, and they go, oh, okay, that's interesting. We can pay you more. Thank you very much. Goodbye. What they don't know is that there is no job. This was all just a ruse for me to find out that confidential information about what my competitor is paying their employees. I now have the answer, right? Let's say I interview several people. They all say the same thing, or they're from different positions, and I get like a good sort of idea of what my competitor is paying all these people in different positions, right? It's industrial espionage, right? This is a known thing. It's a type of social engineering, right? It's sort of like, it's almost like hacking somebody's password. You're gaining confidential information that should be secure. It should be confidential. So that's a known thing. Okay. So if I was being invited to a job interview and I get to the job interview and they start probing me about like, specific business things that I'm doing in my current job or my last job, and they want numbers, they want specifics, that would be a red flag. Okay. Now, I suppose in theory, it could be a test. They just want to see, are you the type of person that's going to reveal confidential information about your employer? Because if you are, then you fail the test, right? I suppose that's possible, but I would consider it more of a red flag than like a legitimate question. So that's what I would say about that. Hopefully that's what you're asking. I don't fully understand what you said, but if you want to elaborate, that's fine. Well, there you go. I've reached the end of the stream, or the questions anyway that you guys have. So yeah, it occurs to me that I haven't actually talked about the thing that is the topic of this live stream, which is how to prepare for a job interview. Now I've already said a couple of things, right? You're going to obviously do what you guys are doing. You're going to try and find good answers to the common job interview questions, okay? You're going to work out what your answers are. You're going to do mock interviews, okay, where you grab a friend or a family member and get them to rehearse with you, get them to ask you questions, and you answer them like it's a real job interview. And as I said, if that feels awkward or you feel nervous doing it, that's good, because that's simulating what it's going to feel like in the actual job interview. Now, other things you can do, okay, is that if you are responding to a job ad, and on the job ad, they've said the requirements that they're looking for, okay, use their lingo, okay? Usually it's possible to say something two different ways. You could use different words to say the same thing. You use the words they use, okay? So instead of calling yourself, here's kind of a dumb example. Instead of calling yourself an employee, if in the job description they were talking about an associate, you use the word associate because that's the word they're using, okay? If you're talking about being a supervisor, right? Your previous job was a supervisor, but in the job description, they're talking about hiring someone as a lead hand, okay? Lead hand and supervisor basically mean the same thing. But if they're looking for someone who can be a lead hand and has lead hand experience, don't tell them you have supervisor experience. Tell them you have lead hand experience. That's because a lot of recruiters don't actually know that these terms mean the same thing. So you use the lingo they use, okay? When you rehearse, that's one thing you should be aware of when you prepare, okay? Speak in their terms. Another thing you should do to prepare is to research the company. Okay, you don't have to spend a lot of time on this. Maybe take 5 minutes and research the company. If they have a website, go to their website. If you want to just do a Google search on that company, okay, name of the company and location, and see what comes up. Okay, great things to know are like what they do, what business they're in. So, for example, if you're getting a job as an accountant, right, to do accounting, it kind of doesn't really matter to you what business the company is in, but you should know that, okay? Because even though you're going to be doing accounting, right, it doesn't really matter what business it is, learn what business this company is in. What's their product? What's their service? Also, learn who their competitors are. Okay, you don't have to memorize all their names, but just have an idea, okay, like who's their competitor, and if their product or service is different from that of their competitors, that's a great thing to know. Okay, that'll get you a lot of points if you know that in the interview, okay? Another thing is that if you're practicing, okay, work on your interpersonal skills, work on your communication skills, and work on your confidence. Okay. Learn how to talk to people. Like, work on things like, if you're just starting out, work on things like making eye contact. Before 2020, it would be like how to shake hands, things like this. When you walk into a room, what's polite to say? When you first meet someone, you say, it's very nice to meet you. When you're leaving the interview at the end, you say, it's very nice to have met you. Things like this. Work on those kind of skills, okay? Make them so that they're automatic, so that you conduct yourself professionally, and be personable, be friendly. Work on looking personable, smiling, that sort of thing. Work on manners, okay? Things like this, okay? Like the more work you do in that area, generally, the better your career will end up, okay? A lot of people have the technical skills. A lot of people are qualified for jobs. What gets somebody hired is, not their technical skills. Everybody, a lot of people have technical skills. It's their personality. It's their soft skills. Do you have charisma? Are you someone that they would want to work with? Are you someone that they would want to communicate with and communicate in a professional way? So, learn how to behave in a professional situation. Learn how to dress for an interview and things like this. How to talk, how to act, all that kind of stuff. That will go far. Okay. These are skills that last with you your whole life and your whole career. Okay. So that's the kind of preparation that you should be doing also. Okay. Don't downplay that kind of stuff. Don't leave it as an afterthought. Greetings from Brazil. Yeah, Brasilia, right? We had that one before. That's Kluber Mata. I'm sure I'm not saying it right, but thank you for being here, Kluber. And Elvis says, hi from India. Need some tips as I'm applying for guest relations officer on a cruise. Well, that's all about interpersonal skills, isn't it? Presentation and interpersonal skills and protocol. So learn all you can about that. That's kind of, I imagine the person that they select for that role will be strong in presentation, protocol, and interpersonal skills. In particular, being pleasant, being accommodating, being friendly, and being professional. Right? I can imagine that being, a huge amount of the criteria is going to be sort of those things. Lion, I recognize Lion, my good pal Lion. What to do when the resume gives you interviews, but the gap is long and makes it difficult for you to get hired? Saying that you studied during that time doesn't help, as they feel you are out of date. Okay. Well, yeah, the standard thing to do is to say, not just to say, but also to have done some self-improvement of some kind. Okay. So volunteering, going back to school, taking technical training. Now, listen, if they feel you're out of date, like you mean that regardless of what you say or what you have, they've decided you're out of date. My next question would be, how long have you been out of work? If they feel that, are they just being idiots, or is this legitimate? Because if you're legitimately out of date, then you probably should take some training or schooling or something to be able to show that you're not, right? Okay, if it is legitimate. If they're just a bunch of idiots and they have made up their mind that you're out of date despite that not being the case and you having evidence to the contrary, then that's like a red flag that you might not want to work for them. If this is a chronic problem, like you're encountering this same issue with multiple employers, in that case, I would seriously look into networking, because networking is the sort of blanket solution for all the problems with getting a job through standard channels like this. Okay? Because they're not judging you on what's on your resume. They're judging you about their interaction with you. That's how you make something happen, is they see what you're doing, the fact that you approach them, the fact that you made them enjoy dealing with you, the fact that you came across like a very capable professional person. That's the reason why they'll give you opportunities if you go through networking. Okay, it's not by what's on your resume or how you answer a job interview question. Okay, so that's sort of what I would say in that order. I'd work on, or I'd investigate for that situation. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, couple of years. Okay, so you studied and it doesn't help as you feel you're out of date. You're out of date by a couple of years, and that's the work gap, a couple of years. I mean, look, in 2019 and earlier, a couple of years might have been an issue. After 2020, generally, that's not as much of an issue as it was before, because there is a bunch of disruption in the world, right, since 2020. And so people have work gaps, and it's because of that disruption, but if they just don't believe you. So as I said, okay, number one, if it's just this employer, it's a red flag for that employer. You might not want to work with them. Number two, if it's many employers that give you the same sort of result, they all have an issue with this, okay? I would, and it's impossible to brush up on your skills and give them what they want. I would look at a job through networking, okay? That's kind of the solution. As I said, 75% of people that get jobs get it through networking, not through answering job ads. So I would check that out. Don't take my word for that. Do your own research, and you'll see that that's the case. Okay, I have some videos on it. I cover that in my course, by the way. I haven't mentioned my course, but I guess I will, because I talk about that. I talk about multiple ways of getting jobs in my course. Everything from standard channels through to networking, through to some more exotic ways. Okay. That's this, by the way. So if you want to go deeper and you want to get my entire sort of step-by-step process for getting a job, okay, from entry level all the way to middle management, that's this right here. Link in description. Check that out. So hopefully that helps, Line. Hopefully, because, if they just don't believe you and it's just not true, you can do the job, you are perfectly qualified to do the job, but for some reason they have decided that you're not. That's very similar to the situation where you're changing careers. They look at everything in terms of years of experience, even though you might be very capable and more than capable of doing the job. They still have it in their heads that you are not qualified, because how could someone know how to do the job if they've never done it before? That's how they think. That's how recruiters think. We all know that's false. People come out of university with PhDs and they step right into very high level positions. That's the ultimate proof that, you don't have to have done the exact job before to know what to do. That's ridiculous. But yet, some recruiters and some hiring managers are stuck under that misapprehension. So there you go. I'm going to be wrapping this up in a few minutes. So if there's any last questions, please send those in. Otherwise, I will be signing off soon. I want to thank everybody that's attended this thing. I got a lot of questions today. I don't think I've had this much trouble keeping up with the flow of questions and things that have come in. So that's great. Min Here we go. Min says, thank you very much for helping us, sir. I will take notes, all your suggestions. Thank you for being here, Min. I hope it was somewhat helpful. Yeah. Listen, what I'm going to say is that, if you're looking for a job right now, if you're between jobs or you're doing the whole job search thing, just remember, okay, I can't say this enough. Just remember, discovering jobs through job postings and applying them with applications is not the only way to get a job. In fact, it's not a very good way of getting a job. The best jobs are not posted publicly. Okay, there's many reasons for this. The biggest one is that they're in very high demand. Okay? The other reason is that, they want additional insight into the person they hire. And so that's why they're not posted publicly. They don't want to hire strangers for it. They want to hire people that has a personal connection. There's some kind of personal reference. Someone will vouch for them that, like, I know this person and they're good. Now you can be that person. You don't have to go out and know 1,000 people. You can do this through networking, but you need a little bit of initiative. Okay. You have to approach the companies yourself. And you don't approach the recruiters. Is the other thing that a lot of people misunderstand. You don't approach the recruiters. You bypass the recruiters. Okay? You go to the hiring managers, the decision makers in these organizations, and you go to the ones high up. You don't go to people at the bottom. They don't know. You don't go to people in the middle. They're too busy. You go to the people up here. It's their job to take unsolicited queries from the public. It's part of their job. You can take it from me. I used to be a CEO. I used to be executive. I've done this myself. I've got a lot of consulting clients by doing this. Connecting with people over things like LinkedIn and then saying, hey, I got a few questions I'd love to be able to ask you. Would you have half an hour? We could grab a coffee. And they say, sure, yeah. You make it flattering. I'd love to get your expert opinion on this industry. And then, they say, sure, that's very flattering to get. Next thing you know, you've got an interview with somebody very high up at an organization. And it's a very friendly discussion. It's not a job interview. It's an informational interview. It's a different thing. Okay. And if they like you and you present yourself professionally, and you say, I'm interested in doing this kind of work, they can come back to you and say, we actually are hiring. We were looking for someone that can do that. A lot of times it won't line up, right? But sometimes it will. It's a numbers game. Sooner or later, very soon, if you keep doing enough of them, it will. And not only do you get a job at the end of that, you get a good job because they want you. They don't just want someone, they want you. They were impressed with you. And that makes for a good job. When your boss hired you and they like you, that's a good job. So anyway, I'll spare you the big thing. I go into this really deep in my course, okay, if you're interested. I have some videos on my YouTube channel. Like I said, probably a good one that I did recently was the one called How Successful People Get Jobs. So if you go to YouTube and you do in the search box, you type in the company's expert, How Successful People Get Jobs. That'll give you a little bit of what it looks like, okay, how to actually get those. It can be intimidating for people that are like entry level, but it's totally possible. How do I know this? Because I taught a course in university where I made the students go out and do this. I made them get informational interviews with CEOs of companies in their hometown, in their industry. And I even got several of them to get selfies while they were doing it with the CEO. I mean, that opens up all kinds of career opportunities. You can, if you have a question about something in that industry, you can call up the CEO of a company in that industry in your hometown and ask a question. And they'll say, hey, it's you again. Yeah. And then you got a question, they say, sure. And then they answer it. Right? And if they're hiring for someone like you, you know the CEO, you know? As I've said before, I think I said in my last live stream, nothing's more powerful than when the CEO hands the head of HR your resume and says, look into this person. And if you're young and you're just starting out, you're probably, if you're listening to me say this, you're probably thinking, bullshit, you know, that I can't do that. That won't happen for me. Well, you're wrong. It can easily happen for you if you do. It's very simple to do, actually. It's like getting a job through a job interview. You think it can't happen to you until it happens, right? This can happen for you too. And I'm not here to sort of convince you of that, but it does work. And I've trained students in how to do this. It's actually not that hard. So if that's interesting to you, I give like scripts and all this kind of stuff and a step-by-step process. But it takes a little bit of initiative. You have to go and connect to people on social networking. You have to approach them professionally, and it's a numbers game. You have to keep doing it. You have to build up a little bit of a network. If you're an extrovert, you could do this in real life. You could do it face to face. If you're an introvert, you could do this all online. You don't have to have a single phone call with anyone, a single video call with anyone, and you don't have to meet a single person. Okay, like to connect with everyone. You know, but then if a CEO says to you, hey, yeah, let's get together, you know, how's here for you? You know, you then have to go and meet them, maybe at a coffee shop or something, you know, like a Starbucks. And it can happen. So anyway, if that's of any interest to you, I have that in my course. I also have free videos on my YouTube channel. Check them out. Okay, that will, if you've encountered a lot of seemingly insurmountable problems going through standard channels, this is the way to break that deadlock. Okay, it's a variation of this type of process that is how most people get hired. So that's what I'll say. Oh, Stanislav, I've got another super chat. Thank you, Stanislav. That's awesome. You are awesome. Thank you for the channel. I found the most useful topics on your channel for me. What are your salary expectations and what are your weaknesses? Yeah, those are two trick questions. They're both questions that are designed to trap you. So I'm glad that helped. Thank you very much. That's great. Favorite blog, how to get confidence in speaking fluently. There is only one way, and that is to practice. The more you do, the better you get. You can be an expert. You can crush it, but you got to practice. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's, you know, very nerve-wracking in the beginning, but that's the road to success. Wow, that's a complicated name. The Chomsky Honk. Very grateful for all of this valuable knowledge presented so simply. Kudos. My pleasure. Thank you. I have a motor mouth and I just ramble, and so it's very flattering that you found it coherent enough. So thank you for saying that. How to make network automatically and get job in 30 days. Well, I don't know any particular thing that you can put that kind of time limit on, even like doing a standard job interview. I mean, you know, what's probably the most impactful is physically walking into the company that you want to apply to. Like walk through their front door, go talk to their receptionist, you know, have your resume, have your a business card, says your name, your contact information, and like your tagline. What is it you do? If you're an engineer, you say, you know, Bill Todd, engineer. If you're, you know, a customer service representative, you say Bill Todd, customer service representative. Okay. And you walk in there and you say, could I speak to the manager of this department? Now, 90% of the time, they're going to say, sorry, that person is unavailable. You say, okay, Not a problem. Listen, if I leave this here, like your resume, can you pass it on to that person? 90% of the time, they'll say yes. You say, okay, excellent. Would I be able to get their name? What's that person's name, if I could ask? Like if they've agreed to pass it on to the person, like, what's their name? Okay. So you say, so they 90% of the time they'll tell you. So you say, okay, thanks very much. It's a pleasure to meet you. And then you leave. And then you call later. You call maybe the next day and you say, hi, my name is Bill. I'm just following up. I left my resume for you at the front desk. I was just following up to see if you had received it. And they say yes or no. It kind of doesn't really matter what they say. You say, okay, no problem. Listen, I do this kind of work. I do customer service. I'm an amazing customer service person. I'm looking for a job. I know a bit about your company. I know the good work that you guys do. So listen, if ever you're looking for a great customer service person, give me a call, okay? Thank you very much. You have a great day. That's all you do, right? So you see, you're demonstrating your professionalism, you're demonstrating your initiative, you're demonstrating the fact that you want to work there. You're not just looking for any job. You're looking for a job with them. And that gets you a lot of points, okay? So if ever they are looking for someone like, say, a customer service representative, if that's what you are, why wouldn't they just call you up and say, hey, we might have a job. Why don't you come down and we'll talk about it? Right? That's the cheapest and easiest thing for them to do. They'll check you out first. They've got your resume. They've been impressed by meeting you as a person. You've just jumped to the top of the resume pile if they are hiring, because you're the only person that they've met so far, and they liked you. So that probably has the most impact. I don't know about the whole 30 days thing. I mean, if you do enough of these, maybe that will happen in 30 days. But I mean, it's a numbers game. I would reserve this for a company that you actually really want to work at. It's important that you work there. It's your like number one place or something like that. The more of those you do, the better you get. But like literally, that's all you have to do. You jump ahead of the crowd by doing that. Anyway, thank you to Min for saying such nice things. Thank you to Loe, and Romar and everyone else. Thank you to all you guys for being here. You guys are all awesome. I wish you nothing but the best. I'm doing these live streams on Sundays and Wednesdays, kind of at this time. So the next one will be on Wednesday. So tune in for that if you feel so inclined. And I will see you then. Thank you so much. Just as a reminder, if you are interested, check out my course, link in description. I have two courses, actually. I've got this one, Get Hired, and I have the other one called the $100 MBA. So if either of those are interesting to you, check them out. Link in the description box. And I will be back. And I wish you all the best. So thanks very much and take care.